Hello, and welcome to today's Coppice Development stream. I'm Martin, the developer of Coppice, and for everyone who's new, this is my experiment in transparent development. I've seen a lot of game developers and developers for other platforms developing software, games, and so on Twitch, so I figured why not give it a go for Mac development, because for many people developing for Apple's platforms, and especially the Mac, is a bit of an enigma. And while I spend most of my time doing contract work, I am also an indie app developer, and I figure on those days, why not share the experience, the joys and frustrations of building a Mac app, designing a Mac app, and supporting a Mac app with you fine folks. So today we're going to be looking at the next version of Coppice. So Coppice is my Mac app that lets you basically collect various bits of information, so your thoughts, your ideas, you can link them together and you can lay them out visually on the canvas, as you can see on the starting soon screen. And what we're working on for this next version is primarily improving image pages, so pages that just contain an image, and at the moment all they can really do is contain an image. So what we've been doing is, in the first development stream we did some design work, so I will show you some of that now. So if we hop over to our main screen and let's have a look at some of these designs. So what we worked on was we want to support some basic image editing, so the ability to rotate and crop an image, and I also want to support linking from an image to something else, so adding hotspots. So what we added on the last development stream was image rotation, so adding some buttons to Coppice to allow you to just rotate 90 degrees left and 90 degrees right. And today the focus is going to be on cropping. So I want to build this UI. Now this is going to be a lot more involved than just image rotation, because we need to build this entire UI from scratch. Add this on, add support for dragging things on, make sure that you can drag by the corners or just drag by the sides. Maybe think about what other things we can add in, maybe sizes, being able to move the area around, keeping it bounded within the cropped area. So there's going to be a lot to do, and probably not get through it all today, but it's probably one of the, well, it definitely is the biggest bit of UI work we've done so far, so let's see how it goes today. So this here is our project for Coppice, and if I build and run, I'll show you what the current state of things is. Now unfortunately I'm still on an Intel Mac, so it does take a little while for stuff to compile, unlike all the lucky people on the Apple Silicon Macs that they click build and run and it's almost instant now. Okay, let's just close that and delete that and create a new sample document. Alright, so what we worked on were these buttons up here, which don't have icons, but you can click left, click right, and it will rotate for you. And it even fully supports undo, which is useful. So what we want to do is add the ability to go into crop mode. So you'll be clicking this button here, and it will bring up the ability to crop. So what I initially want is a bigger image for testing with, because we need a good range of images. So let's bring up the help window. we'll use this for cropping. Just take a screenshot and then we'll drag this in. So we've got our image page here. Need to do that. Right. So we're going to have click the crop button. We want to switch into image mode, and what we're probably going to do is just add a view on top that allows us to crop down. Now, one key thing with the cropping is it needs to be non-destructive, so that you'll be able to go back into crop mode and basically size this back up to be whatever you want it to be the full screen or be a different part of it. So what we also need is, say if you cropped this bottom bit, well, let's say you cropped this bit here, this would now be in the center. When you go into crop mode, this needs to shift down so the crop thing appears and the entire image appears. So I think we might work that out later. What we're going to do now is just get a view appearing that we can actually drag controls around. So, going to the image editor, we've got image content editor here. And we've got various things such as our placeholder view that appears when nothing else is visible. What we're going to do is add a new group for crop. Call it crop controls. So, how is everyone in chat today? How are you all? What are you up to while you're watching? Well, that's certainly a long time ago for Mac development. Yeah, I started with Xcode 1, I believe it was. But yeah, Interface Builder was, a separate app back then, so it was very different. It's always fun when you're having to debug stuff rather than just build stuff. But building stuff's the fun part, so hopefully your debugging goes well. Let's just do this as an NS view. And it's Coppice. What we could do in here is we want a mode. Yeah, building takes a while. Thankfully, Coppice isn't too big an app, so Coppice doesn't take too long to build, and it's almost exclusively Swift. I think there's like one small bit of Objective-C in Quick Look, which does help it build a lot faster, but yeah, it still takes a while, so... Though, the benefit is, well, building, like you say, you could watch a Twitch stream, or you could go make a cup of tea, or whatever you want to do. Not Code Runner. My apps back in the day, I had an app called Code Collector, which was a code snippet app where you could actually collect all your snippets in, then bring up something to actually insert them into whatever you were doing. It was a little bit like a text expander, but dedicated for code. Code Runner's a separate app. I think that actually just compile, let you basically do Swift playgrounds in a sense before Swift was even a thing. Yeah, it was Code Runner was a cool app. I never actually used it because I was set in my way, so I was just creating a new Xcode project to quickly test some stuff, so... Yeah, that's the downside of moving away from the Mac, is there are a lot of cool little apps out there that you end up tending to miss in the end. So it's one of the great things about having the indie dev community on the Mac is you get all these small cool utilities and small apps made by small teams, which really are what sell the Mac, at least to me. Right, so what I'm doing is creating a mod in the view model. So most of my stuff I'm trying to do MVVM, model view model. That may not be precisely exactly how it should be for model view model, but the idea for this is basically wanting to have as much stuff be agnostic to the UI framework as possible. So try to make as much of this content agnostic. Now some bits I can't avoid just yet, such as like there's an NS image here, but hopefully I'll be able to get rid of those later. Now the idea is, if I make stuff agnostic to how, like the actual Vue UI framework I use, it means that it makes it easier to replace AppKit with maybe Swift UI. Or I could take some of the Vue model code and replace AppKit with UIKit and bring it to iOS. And indeed, I actually tested that with the canvas. So the entire canvas in Coppice, if I show you, this entire system here, where you can drag pages around, resize them, they open up and everything. All of these actions, selecting to drag and everything, is abstracted away from AppKit. So it is actually, I believe in Coppice Core, I have a layout engine. And this layout engine actually takes everything in and it moves stuff into like down events, drag events, up events. So these are abstracted away from like mouse events or everything like that. And the reason I've done it all this way is, again, it abstracts the UI away. It also means that I can unit test this, so my entire layout engine is heavily unit tested, but I can also do things like take it over to Quick Look. And my Quick Look plugin basically imports all this and reads the document, does the layout, but rather than rendering it to views in AppKit, it actually renders it to an image to save to disk. So as a proof of concept, my that the entire layout engine for doing everything with Coppice in the canvas is completely UI agnostic. So that's why I'm really building this as MVVM, to try and give me that flexibility, because especially on the Mac, what UI framework you use is up in the air at the moment. I stick with AppKit because it's what I know and it's what allows me to get the most control. But it just gives me the flexibility to change in future. So, hi Uma, glad you could make it this time, a bit earlier. So today we're going through cropping, so we'll see how that goes. Let's have a look through chat. Oh yeah, the Touch Bar MacBook Pro was not the best in the world. I actually had one briefly from a contract, and thankfully I never really had to use the touch bar that much. What I was actually using for that contract is I had a non-retina iMac, so I had the laptop at the side and I was using target display mode, so my iMac was basically turned into a glorified monitor for the laptop for doing contract work, which is partly why it took me so long to upgrade to a retina iMac, because I needed target display mode until that contract ended. So yeah, the new MacBook Pros are a lot better. So like everyone I know who's got any of the new Macs has raved about them. So no, personally I'm waiting for either a high-end iMac or hopefully a Mac Pro, which I'm hoping won't be as ridiculously priced at the low end as the current Intel one, so that I can actually justify getting one. Right, so we need to go into our inspector. We have our typed view model, which is our image inspector view model, so that rotates left. And that holds on to the image editor view model. So what we want to add in here is function toggle crop mode, and what this is going to do is let's just do a switch. I really should actually download Xcode 13.1 and try that out, but I guess I'll have to do that for next week's stream, because apparently in the latest version of Xcode, the latest beta, they fixed a lot of issues, such as if I do self.typed editor viewModel.mode, sometimes it actually does autocomplete everything, but most of the time it doesn't, and sometimes when it does, it manages to autocomplete the switch statement, but using a completely different enum somehow. So okay, so what we're going to do here is, if the mode is not crop, we're going to change it to crop, and if the mode is crop, we're going to change it to view. Up here, we are just going to add in our thing. And Professor, this is one of the things that you may not have seen if you haven't seen Xcode that much since Interface Builder was a separate app. People who didn't use Xcode back in the day when it was separate won't appreciate the ability just to drag from one from the nib into the code and insert the action there. You could have it switch back to the previous mode, but there are going to be three modes. One is going to be crop mode, another's going to be hotspot mode. So at the moment, here I have buttons for creating different types of hotspots. So you could create a square, a circle, and a polygon. What I'm thinking is these will be replaced with a button like crop, which will actually switch you into hotspot mode, and then there'll be a toggle that appears that lets you switch between what actual type of hotspot you want to draw. Because when you switch to hotspot mode, you'll be able to actually edit all the other hotspots as well, so it makes things a bit better. Now, I may end up making this like a segmented control where you just toggle between the three modes. I haven't decided that yet. I'm always a little iffy in inspectors having too many actions in there and having things that toggle. Now, having it toggle the actual view mode might make a bit more sense in that case. So we'll play around with it. I'm very much someone who I will design stuff in Photoshop and build it that way, build the UI out, but then get it into code and start tweaking it there, because you only really know how things feel when you get it in the app and start actually using it. So it's I sort of sketch it out. Well, I say sketch it out. I wouldn't call doing all of this design work quite a sketch, but I enjoy doing it. It's a fun thing to do, and it gives me a sense of the visual side of things. But then I just start building it all out in code and play around that way. Let's see, so we want to call this toggle crop mode. So we connect that up and we just want self.viewModel.toggle crop mode. Yeah, I've tried doing SwiftUI for previews, but it's always seemed kind of flaky for me when I've tried it. Like I've tried it a few times and it just hasn't really worked out as well. And the thing is, I've found that I've been able to get like IB designable working fairly well. In fact, do I? I do. Yeah, the link control is a good one. So I've got, when we go to the link inspector, it takes a little while to build, and this is where SwiftUI is a lot faster, because it's a lot faster at going through and building this. But I have my link control there. I have all of my IB inspectable is enabled, all my icons and stuff like that all appear here. And once this is finished building, it's generally faster once it's done the first build through. Build failed. What has gone on here? Yeah, of course there's no build time. Oh, is that because I started... Expected token, image editor, inspector, view controller. Yeah, that would be why. Hopefully once this is built, it will actually show up the link inspector there. There's an extraneous. There we go. So the link inspector now appears over there. We'll ignore those for now. So if I go to the link control, I can actually tweak various bits and pieces here. So we have the clear button width. If I was to change that to say 55, do a quick build, reload it, and now it's much wider. Now it's, like I say, the feedback isn't quite as fast as SwiftUI, but I found it more reliable than using SwiftUI. I've tried all the stuff that they talk about there, but it just hasn't really worked for me for some reason. I don't know if it's because I'm supporting 10.15 and SwiftUI is very iffy on 10.15. I mean, this is why I'm not using SwiftUI in Coppice, is I'm supporting 10.15 and it's way too buggy then. I was going to look into it for macOS 11 again, but the amount of people that I saw trying to write full SwiftUI apps and then basically having to go back to either AppKit or Catalyst put me off then. It seems to be better in macOS 12, so that might be the point where I get to macOS 12 as the minimum. I can start using it in places, but I don't really see myself using it before then, and it's just one of those things of I don't really see the need, because like SwiftUI has its benefits, but it doesn't necessarily have enough benefits to outweigh its current drawbacks. Now, if you're on the watch, I'd say just use SwiftUI. SwiftUI for watch apps. iPhone, it depends what you're doing. Same with iPad, but the Mac is just sort of, they've got a lot more work to do. Oh yeah, I agree. It's like if I could get the preview thing working, maybe it works better, because I'm still on macOS 11. I was meant to upgrade over Christmas and I forgot to do it. So at some point I'm going to get up to macOS 12, but yeah, hopefully it will improve. But yeah, I think as a actual UI framework, if SwiftUI is going to replace AppKit and UIKit, it's something that is going to take like a decade or more to do, because AppKit and UIKit are very mature, very powerful, and very flexible. So, but if SwiftUI, if all of them stick around, and it's just like we've got all these frameworks, and SwiftUI is just a way of doing the simple stuff, and AppKit and UIKit become like a lower level thing, to me that's best of all worlds, because it's an abstraction layer on top for doing the simple stuff, but you can still drop down to the AppKit and UIKit layer when you need to get the real fine-grained control over things. So we'll see how things play out, but I've learnt many times developing software, it is best to be slow and steady. You don't need to hop into every new technology immediately. I stuck with Objective-C primarily until roughly about Swift 3, and it didn't really hurt me. But I jumped onto things such as Objective-C garbage collection very early, and that burnt me. So right, so when we switch the mode, what we want to do, we're going to want to observe the mode. Now, I haven't sectioned this very well because this was a very simple thing. So let's add some section in. So, arc circle. Interesting. What on earth is this for? It's always great when you look at your code and you wonder, why on earth does this exist? Apparently for no real reason. Okay. Let's delete some dead code. Victory. That is in Canvas. That is important because we want the image scaling. Because if it's in the canvas, we scale the image up or down to fully fit whatever size the user picks, even if it means scaling up beyond the actual size. Whereas when you're in image view, we don't really scale it up. The maximum size is the actual image size. This is mostly because I decided the user doesn't have a huge amount of control over the size of the full image editor, but they have full control over the size on the canvas, so give them full control in that regard. But I keep it proportional because 99% of the time that's what they want, and the rest of the time, well, that's where stuff like cropping can potentially come in and help. Alright, so we want to add validation, we want to add linking. We can get rid of that because what we want to do is add a snippet. Subscribers. What we'll do here is description observer, because when you have lots of observers, this actually is something that is nicer to do. Subscribers / dot image description observer equals that, and we'll do these. In this particular case, I call cancel explicitly because for some reason it wasn't actually cancelling, but we can get rid of the nilling out because subscribers will be nilled out properly. How NSView controller becomes the validator for NS toolbar. So the reason that is that I think can't remember which other inspectors I have that in. Well, I don't think it's might be in the link inspector. That might actually be oh yeah, this is in the image editor, sorry. That's right. So yeah, this is just here just so the validation actually occurs on here. We have it as well in the text controller, but in that case it tells the link inspector to start editing. So eventually, when we have this set up, when you are in hotspot mode and you have a hotspot selected, then it will basically do the same thing of start editing link in the link inspector. So basically this becomes the first responder and it does the validation, and if something that is a child becomes the first responder, then it goes up the responder chain until it gets to this point, because all the other responders won't actually handle this at all. And if they do, then they're the ones that are meant to handle it. Now, the way it finds that is, in order to know, do I need to call validate toolbar item or validate menu item on this object, is it first checks, does it respond to the object? So that's why we need this empty implementation, because if it didn't have this here, the validation wouldn't be called. So hopefully that explains how that works. Right. So we've got our image description observer. What we want now is a new subscriber case mode. Actually, we can rename that because we're not even observing the image description. We're observing the accessibility description. What we can do down here is have mode. So in view will appear subscribers mode self.view model dot mode thing. Probably want it. Switch mode. We have that there. Mode. And we don't need to do the cancel down here. The reason I have the cancel is because this is using key value observing, and like I say, for some reason I found combined with key value observing can be a bit iffy unless you explicitly cancel it. So if you're just using @published, it works fine. So switch to mode, and then we'll switch on mode. Case.view, case. And case.hotspot. In fact, let's briefly leave hotspot up there. So I think what we need for both hotspot and cropping, there's going to be like an overlay. So maybe what we want to end up doing is the image editor crop view make that into it. Yeah, we'll make that into a view controller. So what we're going to do is, that should be private as well. Do private var. Overlay controller. We'll just leave it as plain NSView controller now. And we'll sort that out in a second. But what we're going to do here is the overlay view controller is just going to be nil. Eventually when we do hotspot, we'll split that out so it actually sets it to something. And then here, let's just do a break here for a second. And let's add an NSView controller. Image editor, crop view controller. Right, I want to go back to our image editor view controller. Crop view controller. And when this is set, old value dot remove from parent, old value dot view dot remove from super view, so we get rid of the old version. Actually no, first guard old value not equal to overlay view controller, because we don't want to do things unnecessarily. Do that, and then if let view controller point, and it goes in. It'd be nice if there's a configuration to say that you're pedantic and you want to use self everywhere. I actually have Swift format to help me with that, but it would be nice if Xcode could do that for you. So overlay equals self overlay, self dot add child overlay view controller, self dot view dot add subview, like you can dot view insets. Did I add a no ns edge insets 0? So this is just a little extension I've added to NSView where you can pass in an edge insets and it will add the constraints for you around, so it makes things a bit more convenient for just adding a few things in. So let's have a look here. So you add the child self view, add subview inset, so that will add that in there. What we need to do here in old view is self.view equals image editor crop view. And then in here what we're just going to do is color dot white 0, let's do 0.5 dot set and self.bounds.fill, just to make sure that this appears correctly. So hopefully when we click crop, this should now appear. Oh, what's that complaining about? Oh, let's do switch 2. if that helps. May have just been annoyed that I was using a keyword. Okay, so that built. Rerun. Yeah, I could do that, but I'd rather just change it slightly than have to deal with that. So we'll go in here. There we go. We've got our view toggling, which is great. Right, so what we want now is we want to give the image bound. Ooh, that's actually a bug. That should not be happening. Okay. Let us fix that, because that should not be going off there. Right. We need to... I think I've done this in the text editor view controller. That's scroll view insets. That added. Right, what we are going to have to do then here is controller. That goes to the top. Right. One constraint. Not letting me. Oh yeah, because I need to add a name, don't I? Image view top constraint. So private func. Okay. We don't want to fix on Catalina, we want to fix on Big Sur and above, because Catalina won't have things. So I think what we want to do is that to false, and then we want to do image view dot top anchor dot constraint equal to self dot safe self dot view dot safe area layout guide dot top anchor dot is true. So let's give that a try, and if that works we'll do the same for the placeholder. Oh, helps if I call the method. View did load self dot fix constraints on Big Sur. Build failed. Add availability check. All back. Right, so scale that up. Yeah, that is working correctly now, and hopefully we're going to drag that into there. That is working as expected. So I'm currently on macOS 11, and the main reason I haven't upgraded to 12 yet, well, two main reasons. One, there isn't a huge amount new in 12 that I really need, and normally I would have upgraded by now, but the thing is, when I was moving house last year, I was one of those things of, okay, I'm packing stuff up, and before I moved, pack up my computer, oh, before I upgrade, let's upgrade to macOS 11.5. And it was upgrading, and it got stuck. And basically I had to completely wipe the computer and restore from a backup. So I've been very super cautious about upgrading since then. So I'm stuck on macOS 11 for now, which works fine for me. I'd rather be cautious than have to do another upgrade. But yeah, how things work on older versions, I don't think about that too much normally, but with the switch from 10.15 to 11, it's kind of big. And the thing there isn't as much the appearance per se as things having to be tweaked. So things such as the content area goes behind the toolbar in macOS 11. So you have to use the safe insets, whereas on 10.15 they don't. So you can just go to the top. And the thing is, I can't just go to the safe insets because this is only available in macOS 11. So this is why I'm leaving these constraints in for now, which are just going to like the top anchor. But then I'm going to replace them on macOS 11 and above with new constraints. I believe I now need to bring the placeholder view, because I believe that's only shown by, yeah, that's only shown by bindings. So I'm going to have to stick placeholder view here. But yeah, that was not fun, and various things have just not worked ever since I've restored. Like the Notes app just will not sync. I have 0 notes on my Mac. I have to use my iPad and phone. I think podcasts is a bit iffy, but then calendar syncs just fine. So it's like certain services are syncing fine, others aren't syncing at all, and some are syncing periodically. And I mean, iCloud is bad enough as it is, but when it breaks that poorly, I'm stuck really. I've not been able to fix it, so. These in. So these warnings are from Swift Format, which lets you do some linting and customize various things, and it's not the Apple Swift Format, but one that is a lot more flexible and powerful, but it helps just make sure that you enforce these little things. So right. So I have my placeholder view there, and then I want my placeholder view dot top anchor dot constraint equal to dot top anchor constant is 20, I believe. Yep, standard, so 20. And I need to disable. But yeah, for stuff like this, I know I need to do this for 10.15, but I'm not going to really work on it too much. I'll go and try it when I have a chance to launch up a VM. But I mean, I do actually have where am I? Coppice Press Kit. So I do have this, which is what Coppice looks like on Catalina versus the same on Big Sur. So for example, I mean, most of this stuff is the same. You can see that there are differences in the appearance of various controls, but for the most part it's fairly similar. I haven't actually updated Catalina 1 to Big Sur to the latest version, I'm realizing, but most press outlets are going to use the Big Sur one because it looks nicer. But it's mostly stuff like the toolbar, where obviously the toolbar is very different, because obviously we have here we have our sidebar button, but then our new page button is over the sidebar, whereas here we have the sidebar button and the new page button there. So I've got code that basically makes sure these are aligned correctly, and that the canvas appears over here on Big Sur, but over here by default on Catalina. And then it's stuff like how scrolling goes up behind. So there's lots of little things that needed tweaking all over the place. Various controls down here, the icons needed realigning and so on. So I believe on the blog, if you're interested, that'd be August. Yes, it was. So I actually wrote a blog post. Can't paste it into OBS's chat. So that blog post is me bringing the app over to Big Sur from like the first run and finding out what needs to change, to updating the toolbars and the icons and various things like that. So I mean, if you're interested in what it took to bring Coppice to Big Sur, that blog post is a good read to get an idea of what it took. And thankfully it wasn't that big of a deal. It's just a pain having to support it. And I will drop 10.15 eventually, but I want to get a few more versions out before then, before I actually drop it. One thing I am considering is later in the year, I'm thinking about potentially bringing the app to the Mac App Store. And at that point, I might limit myself to the Mac App Store version having a higher minimum OS version than the non-App Store version. Partly because I want to use StoreKit 2, because that has some benefits to being able to use that, and I believe if I limit myself to macOS 12, then that should work. And hopefully by that point macOS 13 should be getting ready, because I'm not planning it until towards the end of the year. because I need to hook everything up into my back end and add everything in, and I've got higher priorities. So hopefully by then I'll be able to actually have a higher minimum there, but I'll probably at the same time drop the non-Mac App Store version, drop 10.15 at that point. So we'll see. It depends what it is. I mean, normally I'd be fine leaving older OS versions unless they're problematic, but the difference between 10.15 and 10 and 11 is so big that I've got, well, how many of these do I have available? Yeah. So I have 28 so far, and a lot of these, as you can see, OS 10, 10.16, macOS 10.16, macOS 11, because these were all when it was still technically classed as 10.16 early on. So all of these go away when I drop 10.15. So because the issue there is people who are using it, and I've actually had people who looked into Coppice and they're still using 10.14, and I don't support 10.14 at all. So there are people that are holding on to older versions, but hopefully not too many. Right, so that should be fixed. Where were we with our crop view controller? So this is something that we need to think about. Because this is fine, but if you scale down, that's scaling the image down, and doing so moves the image, so the crop needs to move with it. So I suppose the question is, for the edit modes, do we only have the image scaled down for the view mode? But for the edit mode, we have it, because when you scale down, it's going to scale yeah, because if I set this, that's a fair point. Let's add a few debugging things here. If I go to debug menu delegate, and let's have a look at some standard sizes. So if we go to apple.com, go to the Mac, let's go from MacBook Air MacBook Pro. Have a look at some display sizes. Do the 13 and the 14. If we do the 13, 14 and 16. $10.24 by 640 is oh. Let's say what resolutions you can set it to on here. Okay, well, we say 1024 by 64, and the menu bar, if I remember, is 4. So let's say 1024 by what, 616? Smallest. 15. $14.8 4 MacBook Pro. I believe the new MacBook Pros are doing straight native 2x. So 3024 divided by 2 is 1512. And 1964 by 2 is 982. So if we do that, that will be what? So change that something. Right, so I start Coppice up again. Because hopefully now, my debug. So that is the smallest MacBook Air. Actually, we need to take 24 off the height of that, so that's what, 7258. So we build and run. This should hopefully so that's if you're full on the 14-inch MacBook Pro. If you go the smallest possible resolution on a MacBook Air or a 13-inch MacBook Pro, this is what you have. So yeah, I think when we enter edit mode, what we want to do is just swap out the image view entirely. And what you can do then is so we do that and you swap out the image view, and then we can swap it out with a scroll view that lets you edit. Because in the view mode, we're going to want the hotspots in, we're going to want it to scale down and the hotspots to scale down with the image. That shouldn't be too hard to do. But when you're editing, you need much more fine-grained control. So yeah. Yeah, it does also help when you go into the canvas, if I drag that on, scale it down, now we can make that a scroll view. We can sort of temporarily scale it up and scale it back down again afterwards. Because then we can scale it up to almost fill the canvas with some border around. You can edit, and once you're done, we'll scale it back down so that maybe the width is the same, but if the aspect ratios change, the height will change. I think that works. So it's not actually going to be an overlay anymore. It is going to be a full replacement, in which case we might as well just make it a mode toggle at this point. If we're completely replacing everything, it's going to be much easier having a mode toggle, because then the image editor, you've got your sub editors, which is the image view, the image crop, and the image hotspot editors. And they are sort of the sub editors. Right. So I think before starting that, I am going to step away for 5 minutes because I need to go make myself another cup of tea, because this is turning out to be an even bigger job than I was expecting. So I'm going to make myself a fresh, hot cup of tea, and we'll be right back in about 5 minutes. Okay, I'm back and I have tea, so we can get back to working on Coppice. So what we want to do, let's right. So what I'm going to do is this hotspots thing here. I'm going to move this above in the stack view. What we're going to do is remove crop button, rotate. So remove these buttons. I'm going to throw in a segmented control. That is be there. First baseline. Want to do 0. Let's add that in, but make it a greater than or equal to. Want these be being aligned. We have to down to that. Alright, so in here, what we want is on the view model. Alright, so the editor view model. Mode view. What we want to do here, dynamic selected mode index. Make that an int, then we can just return self.editorViewModel.mode.row value, and then set is going to be self.editor. No, want if let view mode equal model.mode row value value model.mode equals new mode. Actually, let's make it so it always does something. We'll just do that. If for some reason this is the wrong value, then we'll just switch to view. It makes things a bit easier for us to deal with. Right. So get set. Now the thing there is you need to observe this. So can't remember base inspector. Not have anything else. Now let's set up pro observation. So what we are going to do here do arc actions, arc version, KVO and drivers, and here we would do editor mode. What we want to do is editor viewModel dot dollar mode dot thing actually on main sync because combine has oh yeah, it's just getting that wrong. Peak self, yourself. We'll change value for key. Key path. Odd index. Oh. So this should. We save it to drivers editor mode. What this should do is when the mode changes here, we should get a will change and a did change. Now that could mess up bindings, but we will see, because what this allows us to do is in here we can bind the selected index to files owner self.viewModel.selected mode index. This should mean what? Don't know why, but the auto import does not like combine in the slightest in Xcode. No member toggle mode. Don't. Oh. So we'll get rid of those and there we go. Success. Sort of. That's clipping, so that is ambiguity in here. Is so what we probably want to do is make these greater than this. There we go. And then what we can do here is segment 1 is view, drop, and hold. Progress. Somewhat progress. That cropping there. Only space better than that. May have to launch the view debugger here. Find out why on earth that. Actually, why is that stuck that? Oh, okay. This is definitely something for the view debugger. Oh, I bet I know why. I bet I have set a constraint slightly wrong. Segmented control. Rate. Yes. That should be a constant of 0. So we no longer need that. This is me forgetting to change some things. Edit mode. Okay. And that fixes that. Now, need the priority here to be 250. That should work. Make the priority lower than the content hugging size. Should work with localization, so on. Okay. Looking good, and that can scale down. Wheat. So there's a question now about the rotation, because do we want to be able to rotate in crop mode and hotspot mode? I think we do. Don't see a reason why we should disallow it, other than it makes life a little bit more difficult for us, but I think this should... I don't think that's a good enough excuse. Plus we need to recalculate anyway, even if we require the user to switch to view mode. So we're recalculating the data and it's all reading off the same data, so it's just updating things. So view crop. I'm thinking about potential transitions for things like if you have this bit cropped, this will probably be here and it will probably be bigger because the image is technically bigger to fit in. And when you switch to crop, it would be nice if, say this is scaled down, it actually grows up to the full size, or if it is something like this, it would actually, again, grow up to the full size but then have everything else appear. But I think we can ignore that for now and just work on the modes. Crop mode. Add oh, roller. Stick that in view mode. Name this to crop mode controller. I would use the refactoring tools, but by the time the refactoring tools have actually done this, because we're only changing it in 4 places, it's not worth it. Right. Don't want an overlay view controller, we want an actual... Oh, didn't mean to do that. Genuinely have no idea what hotkey I just hit then. This wants to actually be called... Editor mode view controller. It's going to be an NS that we add in. In the image editor view mode view controller. And I think all of these are probably going to take the same view model. They're just different views of the same data. So let's add another group. It's going to be hotspot mode. Editor hotspot color. We're also going to want a nib here. And if we create a nib here, because we're going to want a scroll view, so our image editor crop view is just going to be inside of the scroll view. So image editor crop mode controller, add that in. Okay, so for this one, we basically just want copy this view into here. Set that up. And then want to migrate some of this stuff over. So we've got our image view, placeholder view. And they can be moved over. Well, don't want to do that, but we do want the view model, and this is just going to be editor controller. So we want the background color set there, but these things, so the constraints fix now moves over to here. The accessibility description moves over to here. Get rid of that, we'll get rid of the accessibility description. And view will appear. I want to move this down. This is the fun of refactoring, of working out how you need to split things across. So update placeholder label. That definitely needs to be that definitely needs to be over here. Now this does bring up an interesting point. So start editing and stop editing are more used for when in the canvas view. And the reason for that is if you are in the canvas view, you want to be able to just click and drag stuff around without having to go and reach for here. You want to be able to just click and move them around. So what I do is you have to double click to start editing. And the same applies to an image. Now the thing is, there are no modes for text. You're either editing or you're not. So what I might have to do, and this is something we can come back to later, is while you're editing, you can change to a different mode. But when you move out of that and you're not editing, you can't change the mode and it is stuck in view mode. Or maybe you can change it, but changing it in the inspector starts editing. But then when you move away and stop editing, then it switches back to view mode, which I think is what you want, because you don't necessarily want things to be stuck in a different mode. So now that does potentially make undo redo. It's visible in view mode, so it should be fine. This is why it is so hard doing UI stuff, because you may design something, but then you're constantly thinking of all these little differences that will appear. So start editing, stop editing. So we'll leave those for now. What I think we need is a protocol. Let's stick this in a new class file. Don't like sticking too much in the same file if I can help it. Image editor mode protocol. Image editor edit mode, and with edit mode protocol. So what do we need this to do? We need so the point isn't going to make that much of a difference. This is more for text, because when you double click on a certain point you want the text cursor to appear. For images, doesn't really, actually will matter, because if you double click on a point, we're going to want that centered in the scroll view. Let's just add start editing at point CG point. And actually this should be at image point. So what we want to do is work out which pixel in the image the point the user clicked on relates to, which is going to be fun, because then we're going to have to do some calculation, but ideally we need that. No, you're never going to go straight into crop mode, are you? Let's just do start editing. We don't care about that, because if you start editing on the canvas and you double click, you're in view mode. The only way you can go straight to crop mode is by doing it from the sidebar. So, and at that point we just want to center the actual center view part of the image. So we'll do that and stop editing. Actually don't want these because these are protocols. So start editing, stop editing, and then we want a property yeah, I think we just want content. Yeah. So I have this protocol, page content editor, and in turn it is an editor, and it lets me build a hierarchy of editors. And the reason I have this is you have like a page editor, which in turn contains an editor for text and image, and that works for pages and that works for the whole thing. But if I'm in a canvas, then you have the canvas editor, and in turn each of the pages is one of these page editor view controllers. So each of them, it's like editors containing editors containing editors. So what I could do is just make each of these, rather than having a protocol here, have these be a page content editor. Now the reason I'm thinking that is knowing whether something is a link at a point, and opening a link at a point is something that we want the view mode to do, but not the crop or hotspot mode, because we don't want to actually navigate or to say those are links. And if I make them page content editors, then it will call up to that, I believe, link at yeah, it will call here, and it will call that on the image editor, and the image editor can pass it to its editor. So and the other thing there is that I can add additional inspectors that only appear when you are in a certain mode. So when you're in crop mode, I could add an inspector that lets you, rather than just dragging, actually enter specific offsets in for cropping. When you are in hotspot mode, I could do the same and let you potentially switch between square, circle and polygon, change the position of, like, fine-tune things. So I think that gives me the most flexibility possible doing that. So let's get rid of protocol. What we actually have here is canvas page editor. So this could actually be on page content editor, because you've got page content editor there. And is in canvas could be on there, and we just keep going to the parent until we get to the page editor view controller. That is just an editor. We'll ask whether it canvas and that. Yep, so this is coming together. So what we want to do is add the property here, page editor view controller. It's going to be a page editor view controller, optional. Our current parent. self.parent editor. Right, so while current parent is not nil, if let page editor view controller equals current parent as page editor view controller, return page editor view controller. Otherwise, current parent equals current parent dot parent editor. Return nil. And then we want bar is in canvas bool equals page editor view controller dot view model dot is in canvas false. So then we can get rid of that. We can add an extension, image editor mode view controller. Conform to that. Now we can add that to these. Mode and hotspot mode. And this should just work because here we're basically moving over the child editors and parent editors to the child and parent view controllers be editors. So that should all just work, which means that this should all be fine. So let's finish moving stuff over. Got a mode. Need these to shift over. Right. Life cycle. And then in view did load, we want shift over there. We don't care about that. Don't care about those there. That. Here we're going to do this is going to be an NS view controller and page content editor. And this creates a union between NS view controller and page content editor, which should allow us to do self.viewcontroller.start editing at point. Just copy these across. Then we can do the same with stop editing. After editing, mod view controller, stop editing. If we do that, build, we're probably going to get some compiler errors, unless I've done everything right first time. And I haven't. Does not conform to protocol editor. Why? Guys, inspectors requires an enabled property. Okay. So let's get rid of the view there. Let's add our enabled property to each of these. Conform to page content editor. Alright, so we need start editing and stop editing. And that, will it let me do that? It does. Right, so add yeah. Just blank those out for now and satisfy the compiler, because that's all a programmer really does. They don't build software, they don't solve problems, their job is just to satisfy a compiler. That is all they are cursed to do for all eternity. I have another init recorder. Get rid of that. Protocol and this view controller and page content editor as a type cannot conform to equatable. What? You what? Swift. Oh, Swift. Why do you have to be like this? You have so many wonderful features, and then you have your type system. If one of those conforms to equatable, then the whole thing should conform to equatable. Page content editor as part of editor. Part of any of screw it, we'll get rid of that. There shouldn't be a case where the mode is changed, and if it is, it shouldn't be that big of a deal. So, and if it is, we can fix it later. And if it's unsafe, well, safe language. In quotes. Right. There's a missing argument. So we don't want that. We want viewModel self.viewModel. Right, let's get rid of some bits and pieces here. Off dot. So if anyone in chat has any questions about what I'm doing, or questions if you're developers yourself and you've just got random questions about building Mac apps or AppKit or anything like that, feel free to ask them in chat and I'll try to answer them as I go along. Or if you're not a developer and you're just curious about what on earth all this is and how it works, then I'm happy to talk about that. I'm here to try and demystify app development for you all. Yeah, let's see if I've broken anything. Actually, no, I have probably almost certainly broken all of this because I have not connected any of it up. Placeholder view. Placeholder label. Can't get the constraints that way. And of course, if you're enjoying the stream, then be sure to give me a follow, and you can get notified every time I start stream. I try to stream twice a week, every Monday from 2 till 5 UK time, which is from 9 AM Eastern Standard Time for those in the US and Canada. And I try to alternate between Friday and Saturday, the times when I have time off from my contract work and I'm able to work on Coppice. And of course, if you're interested in trying Coppice itself out, you can download it from coppiceapp.com. Down the bottom, it's a free download for the basic version, and then there's a paid version that unlocks a lot more of the features and functionality. But that can be downloaded on any Mac running 10.15 or higher, and hopefully everything should work. I try to keep things well tested. How does it editor view have an... Oh. Ha. Something like this is where it would have been useful for me to leave myself a comment, so I know why on earth doing that. Why would it not hit test to the image view? Oh well, let's find out. So I actually need to get rid of that. Make this just a plain NS view. View up here. Then we can go back to this nib. Delete all of this. Leave that there. And then we see just how much we've broken. Which is anywhere from a significant amount to everything. For example, the images aren't displaying. Okay. Let's undo that. Do that and get this image view here. Yeah, that was bound to the view model's image. So, for those who haven't done Mac development, you may not be familiar with Cocoa bindings, especially if you've only done iOS. But this is basically a somewhat similar data flow to SwiftUI, where you don't have to shuttle things back and forth. You can just, in the UI, tie stuff together. So I could do self.viewModel.image, and I just need to make sure that this viewModel is Objective-C dynamic, and the images, and that should now work. Okay, progress. And here we're doing the same thing. But instead of getting the actual image, we're getting well, we're getting the image, but we're doing self.viewModel.image. While this fetches the image, this requires a boolean. And what we care about is the image nil? So we'll set hidden to true if self.viewModel.image is not nil. And if we do that, that should now correctly hide the placeholder. That now resizes. If I create a new image page, we create that there. Test page. That is why. Because that works, but I can't select that to paste. So what we actually want to do is we do want this to be an image editor view, but we don't want it to be a color background. Do not care about that. So image editor view, we're going to rename this to view mode view. And we're going to change this back to be an image editor view mode view. No, because that selected the NS image view. View mode view. The image view here to go to the image view there. That is tied up, and then over here we want to make this just a coloured background view. And over here, self.view as coloured background view. Have I spelled that the American way? Oh no, it's colour background view. Right. So if we run this, there we go. We can do that. So I can now screenshot to a clipboard and paste in. Okay, so that should be everything working. Test description. That's all working. Rotate left, rotate right. And yeah, we are switching modes. Success. Hey. And I thought all we were going to be doing was drawing some pretty stuff. Okay, let's get to drawing some pretty stuff because I've had enough of doing infrastructure stuff. So let's commit all this. Actually, this 239. Right, so that's committed. Now we are going to do some of the fun stuff and get it so that we can have something where we're dragging around our prop handles. So we have a crop view. So what we want on here is a crop rect. Crop rect. And that is initially going to be gonna set that to 0 initially. And when view will appear, super.view will appear. What we're going to do is self dot view as image editor crop view crop rect equals dot view dot bounds dot inset by let's inset by 40 and 40. And what we're going to do there let's do self.croprect.fill. When we switch to this, that isn't working because it's set offset play. Right. Okay. Oh, because in view will appear, it doesn't have a thing. Let's try view did appear. This might work. If not, we're going debugging. There we go. No, it has made me realise that what we actually want to do is don't want any of that in here. To handle it at a higher level. Oh, get rid of that. What I want to do is get rid of the constraints. Get rid of this. Get rid of that. And we can come in here. I cannot remember. No, so this version don't allow you to specify. I've written this method so many times and I have different versions and some of them had more functionality. I wonder. And the app kit, did I add anything? I did not. They are the same. Oh well. Guess we're gonna add these directly then. So, and this layout constraint dot activate. Play view controller. No, self dot add subview. Overlay view controller. Dot view. Let's answer false. Dot view dot constraint. Oh no, view dot leading anchor dot constraint equal to self dot view. Okay. We get the leading, bottom and trailing edges all lined up, and then overlay view controller.view .top anchor .constraint equal to self.view .safe area layout guide .top anchor. That should hopefully make everything work. Yep. Oh yeah, self.view to add subview. What are you complaining about? Oh yeah. That complaining because it was a comma on there. So build and run, and hopefully this should look okay. Even though it doesn't take too long to build, I still feel like I want a fast machine, and this is not a slow machine that I'm on. I'm on a 27-inch iMac. It's got a 9900K, and this is not a slow machine. But Swift manages to make it feel slow. And when I see people getting ridiculous speed ups with using M1 Max and stuff like that, it's just one of those things of I want that speed up too, but I'm being patient, and hopefully this summer Apple will release some faster iMacs and Mac Pros using Apple Silicon, and I can happily upgrade, because I'm not a laptop person. But it's kind of weird that the iPad Pro next to me that has an M1 in it, an iPad with an M1, I've done benchmarks and stuff, and it is about as fast as my iMac. So yeah, using packages can help. I'm not really using packages. I've got separate projects. So I've got Coppice Core, which is my framework that contains all of the non-UI stuff, really. Stuff that I need to share between various targets and everything. But I mean, it doesn't take too long. I mean, did I do a clean build at some point? No, but an incremental build. I mean, it's only 3.5 seconds, so it's not too bad. I mean, I'm complaining about seconds. How is that for the full thing? But if you're doing like a clean build, it makes a difference. I mean, part of it is also just that I want an Apple Silicon thing, and I want something powerful. I mean, originally I was wanting to get a Mac Pro to replace. I had a 2013 iMac, and I was wanting to get a Mac Pro to replace it. But then it got to the point where, well, the Mac Pro was about £6,000 for the base model, with an 8-core, with I think 8 gigs of RAM, 256 gig storage, and like an AMD, was it an RX 580? Thing is, this iMac with AppleCare, with me upgrading the RAM, because on these iMacs you can do, to 40 gigs of RAM, 8-core CPU that's faster than the Mac Pros, terabyte of storage, and the same graphics card cost me about half as much, and I got a 5K display in there. So it was one of those things of, I can't justify it. But I'm hoping the new Mac Pros, they'll maybe, by being smaller, they'll maybe start at a somewhat more reasonable price and have more of a performance advantage over the iMac, at which point I can justify getting one. So part of it is just want rather than need, but I mean, if they are rumored to be like 20 and 40 core M1s in there, and the current, like the MacBook Pros and stuff, with their 10 cores are like as fast as they are at core compilation, then I think it'll be fairly happy. And for contract work, I work on some much bigger projects that take much longer to build, partly because they're like a mixture of Objective-C and Swift, and that slows down things a lot as well. But yeah, build times are Swift's biggest weakness, but they do keep improving them. I think if you use generics and stuff, there's a build time improvement coming in Swift 6, I think I saw, that's going to be a integer multiple speed increase for compilation, so that could help in certain areas. So right, where was I? Oh yeah, I was seeing if this actually worked. Which it has. Fantastic. Right, so in our crop view, what we actually want is to invert that. So I don't remember how to do that. Bezier path. So So how am I going to do this? Let's experiment with something. So self.bounds.fill. I want to fill a rect with Do I need this graphics context? That let me there we are, compositing operation. This graphics context dot there graphics context dot current compositing operation equals dot destination image destination image where it is opaque. Source image is transparent and transparent elsewhere. I seem to remember there's some really good documentation on this. Well, of course I've been doing this long enough to remember when Apple's documentation was really good across the board. Right. Yeah, it's not as good as it was because it used to give you it's graphic macOS graphics programming guide. Core graphics. Nope, I don't want that. Documentation archive, that's what we want. Where are we? Images and image mask. So what I'm wanting to do is rather than draw dock in the rect, I want to have everything around dock and the area in here clear, and that requires me to mask out that area. Now the thing is, if I'm masking the internal area, I know how to do that, but it's masking where you are excluding. Now there should be a compositing trick to do this, but I cannot remember which one it is. Ah, here we are. Can you create a hole in the Bezier path? I wasn't sure if that would work. Because the paths have to overlap. Can you do intersection with NS Bezier path? access. Here, path. You can append winding rules, stroke and fill, add clip. Yeah, there doesn't seem to be any sort of like union or intersection operations on it. Source image web. So what I'm currently looking at on the compositing operation, and I'm sure there's a way to... Ah, that's it, XOR. Don't know why I just didn't think of that in the first place. Let's color dot black dot set. That should work, I think. No. Don't. Actually, on the pattern, and it's color dot. Let's do system dot set. That's probably why that didn't work. And self dot bounce dot fill. Actually, that's not going to work. Add that again. Let's see if this works. Now. Okay. There's your path track. Oh, wait a second. This is your path. Rect. Stuff.crop rect. Dot reversed. Dot fill. And this color. White 0, 0.5. Set. If that would work. No. Not smart enough to do that. Right, let path equals, and that's basically a path. Rect. Self.bounds. Path dot. Dot. Add clip. This is, oh, to add the color on to a straight black. This probably isn't going to work. There's your path, subtract path. Oh, I've found the solution. Don't want to do that. I was on the right path. Clip path equals ns bezier path rect self dot crop rect, and we want to reverse that, and then path dot append clip path. That might give us what we want. That is how you do subtraction. See, this is again where I wanted to write Coppice. There we go. I have been doing development for Apple's platforms for, I mean, it's not too far off 2 decades now. A few years time, it'll be 2 decades. Never had to do anything like this where I've had one path and I need to subtract something in the middle of it, because it's never come up. With Coppice, it has. And I get to learn these things. This is why, if you have the energy and the time and the will to be able to work on your own stuff, it's fantastic, because you get to learn how to do all these wonderful things. So I can change that to white 0 alpha 0.5 dot set. There we go. So, progress. Now, what we want to do, we're coming towards the end of the stream, but what we're going to need to do is let's add some stuff for next time. I've got the drag handle. In this case, we want top left, case top, case top right, case right, case bottom right, case bottom, case left, case left. Want a private function drag handle at point. because when you mouse down we want to have that. And yeah, so see you later, Professor. Glad you managed to find the bug, and thanks. I'll be back on Monday if you want to follow along. Same time on Monday, so I'll be continuing with this, and hope you also have a nice weekend. Oh, 2 Martins in the chat. But yeah, if you give me a follow on Twitch as well, that should notify you whenever I'm streaming. So okay, well, you should be hopefully notified, and like I say, if not, I stream Mondays, so I'll see you later and hope you have a good weekend. So what we're doing here is we want the drag handle because that is going to determine you drag the corner and you drag the side, so the drag handle can determine in what directions you can drag. Because with the enum we'll be able to add a function where we could say I want to move this point, and this can determine where the X or the Y changes, so that'll be useful. And also, given a rect, we could have the drag handle also have a thing that gives us the path for the actual handle, which would actually be quite nice. Because the thing is with the corners, because the corners are this shaped, and if I don't want to do that wrong thing. If I zoom in, you can see that they're nicely rounded and then they go along here. We can't just do a rounded rect as we can do there. We're going to have to draw these ones ourselves. I mean, I suppose we could see if we can just union them together, but yeah, we're probably gonna have to draw these ourselves. So it would be nice to be able to just have those drawn on. If we can get the path done, we just draw the path and then we're just moving this around. As you click and drag, it will resize down, redraw the clip and everything, and it should all work fairly well. Because the thing is, we're not changing the image behind it, it's just needing to draw this. So yeah, I think we will tackle that on Monday. I am going to do some more work over the weekend, but what I want to do is actually do some non-coding stuff. I haven't actually written on the Coppice blog in a while, so what I want to do is, much like I'm using these dev streams for transparency on the Coppice blog, I want to actually start writing up at the end of the month a development diary. Where I say, what have I actually got done this month? Because the big issue last year is that because I was moving house, I was working on contracting because that was bringing in the majority of the money, but the rest of the time I was having to deal with the house move, and that burnt me out. And then I was trying to get copies done in whatever free time I had, but I was silent for a lot of it, and I wasn't really sharing what I've been changing on Coppice. So I think, again, trying to be a lot more transparent and a lot more open with, it's just me working on this, and this is what I've done this month, and these are the challenges I've faced. I think being more open with those things should hopefully help give people confidence to be able to use Coppice and be able to get the most out of it, and hopefully end up paying for it. Because I mean, the ultimate aim is, as much as I enjoy working on Coppice, I want to build it up to be something that could potentially support me, so that I can spend time working on it full time. And if I could get to that point, that would be brilliant. But it requires building that up over time. So hopefully these dev diaries will give a bit of more insight and a bit more transparency there, and act as something that I can share. So yeah, but as it is 5 PM here in the UK, and we've been going for 3 hours, I think I'm going to call the stream there. So I want to thank you all for coming, for chatting. This didn't go quite how I was expecting. I was expecting to get to this bit with the crop view and be building it almost straight away, but this is how development goes. You think you're going to be doing something, and you end up having to do all this other stuff to get there. But we got quite a lot done. We've built up our new editor infrastructure. We've got that all figured out how that's going to work. We've done it in a way that utilizes some of the editor infrastructure I've already got in place, that opens us up to even greater improvements in the future, and it ultimately solves certain other tricky UI issues that we're going to have, especially on the canvas. So hopefully on Monday we'll come back to this and we'll get straight into this crop view and get that fully working. So with that, I would like to thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next week on Monday at 2 PM UK time, 9 AM Eastern time.